Okay, this is an experiment to see about live streaming. Uh, Whether it's feasible or not on this computer. This computer is over 10 years old, so uh, I need to verify it. I did try live streaming a couple years ago, and it was so glitched that it just wasn't um, feasible. So what I want to do though is save this and upload it. I get really peeved when people do a live stream and they don't save it. I get really peeved. Not only does that disrespect everybody that can't view it, but it disrespects yourself because you've put your time and your life into something and then you delete it. I may not have the most interesting live stream yet, but I can only get better. I can get worse too, but obviously my lighting is crap. Obviously I have laundry. Um, Obviously I need to organize some books. Obviously there's something on the wall there that's only partially revealed there, and that's all I can do, even though it's a painting, a bona fide, legitimate oil painting. Bought it second, triple, third hand, or whatever you want to call it. Think I can afford to commission paintings? Not yet. That's an objective of mine, though. I'd get all the great scientists and philosophers painted up. But anyway, doctors too. Doctors are very important. Medical doctors. So, at any rate, what's my channel all about? It's about whatever I can upload, honestly. Uh, which to me is usually I'm working with technology. Usually I'm working with some sort of scientific concept, or maybe I'm working with junk, or I'm trying to do something with organics, or robotics. I haven't done that in a long time, or solar power, or batteries. I've spent the last few years learning about uh, Edison and Junger uh, alkaline nickel, cadmium, and nickel iron batteries. Um, they're the only batteries you can take from a disused state, decades old, and get them somewhat going again. And then that's all you really need to run an LED light. And there you go. You're set. So why people aren't learning it? Well, part of it, you have to know the right questions to ask before you can get the answers. Some people don't even know what questions to ask. Some people don't even, like for me, like ask me 10 years ago, hey, what do you know about alkaline batteries? And I'd be like, well, they come in AA and AAA, 9 volt. I had no concept that you can have house batteries or ship batteries or truck batteries or, homemade power walls and stuff out of alkaline batteries. And so, what's the story for me? Do I really want to get Diggy Dog deep into it? Well, yeah, this is a test run. You might as well, and if it works, you might as well have a good story. So, when I want to know something, I will self teach myself. So I'm one of those self taught people. What does that entail? It entails me reading books, watching documentaries, watching YouTube videos or other internet videos, possibly talking to people, definitely reading bulletin boards and the like. I mean, um, there's that new one, newfangled one, new to me. I'm not really into it. There's there's Discord, there's Reddit. Um, now I'm not really technically competent with those, but I can somewhat navigate them. Uh, but yeah, I mean, basically, a Google search will give you many leads, and um, I can talk about Edison batteries. Edison batteries. The first I've ever heard about them, like enough to spark my interest, was there's a channel called Hillbilly Homestead, and the guy there, he hasn't uploaded in a while, but anyway, he kind of walks you through how he got some going, and later I deduced by looking at him and owning some of the same ones he has, a few that he has nickel cadmium batteries, but all in all, the nickel cadmium ones he had, some of them were under the Edison label. So technically speaking, he did have Edison batteries. He also had some aircraft uh, nickel cadmiums, and he had some Knife's monoblock batteries. And he had a live stream going for a while, and I kind of asked him some questions. The main thing that bothered me was um, the lithium question. And lithium to the alkaline electrolyte is kind of like how would I explain it? It's kind of like coffee to a person. A person can operate without coffee, okay, but you get add some good coffee, they're gonna be quite a bit more energized, and that's how I understand it from a layman's perspective. You can still run these nickel iron and nickel cadmium cells on just straight distilled water um, and KOH, but for that extra pick me up, you run lithium. He ran straight um, KOH, which is potassium hydroxide, and distilled water, and had good success. So don't let that stop you if you can't get a hold of lithium. I just paid a bunch of money for some lithium that came from India. India is right now uh, in a pause button mode, if you know what I mean, because of all the current world events. So a lot of manufacturing and distribution and stuff is disrupted. So I made some purchases and things to make sure that I had enough media to deal with, or material to deal with some of my restoration projects and things. Now, whether will I have the time and the wherewithal to continue on that, that's going to be a weekend question. I currently have some paid leave from work right now. I'm dwindling down, and I'll be back next week, and hopefully I don't get sick again. I got really sick. We're talking strep throat and pneumonia, and I did the whole 2 week stay away from folks thing. So um, I guess in a way, um, I don't know how much longer I want to let this go for. I think I should let it go for a while. So what else? Let's see. Well, all the barbers and hairstylists and salons and things are out of service. So I had to pull out my barber shears, my clippers from my old gear from Iraq and buzz cut my head. So gone is the stylish haircut, and and front and center now was the old buzz cut. So I'm wearing one of my old army beanies too. It's in the gray. I guess I went to black. I changed everything. There's an old gray one. What do they call that? The forest green or something? I forget what they call it right now, but it keeps my noggin warm. Uh, I live where it's cold, and right now it's not great. Weather-wise, it's cloudy. Which brings me to other subjects. So, distilling water. So I've distilled water straight out of the tap. We're talking the faucet that's provided by the local town. This is a word I have trouble saying. Municipal. The local town municipal water well, and they add the disinfectants, and probably add some other stuff to it as well. And all that, when I distill it, all that ends up as a crust on the water distiller. And so for me, distilling water, it takes a lot of energy. So the battery bank, my house batteries, the batteries that are powering this computer, and that light that's illuminating my face in the way, in kind of a bleached out way, that's off the house batteries. My house batteries are lead acid. Um, they're they're Everstar Walmart Deep Cycle Group size 29, and I have 20 of them. And the way I mentally understood it was, I believe in digits. Okay, you get 10 digits. I mean, the way my mind works, it's like my math comprehension, internal calculator. It's sort of stunted, but my other skills, my other cognizant ability is enhanced. It's like it's a give and take. You just have one stunted and the other one enhanced. But to overcome a lot of that, I go by tens. Okay, so we're talking 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Okay, easy peasy. Even when I pay bills, sometimes I'll round things up to the nearest tenth. That way I don't have to fiddle around with extra digits and extra complications. So with your basic group size 29 deep cycle marine / RV, they're basically sold for fishing boats, more or less, and maybe RVs and things like that, where you just want a house battery that'll play your radio, your VCR, your DVD player, um, your little LCD TV, and your little LED lights, and maybe a couple water pumps and stuff like that. And if you're on your patrol boat or your little fishing boat or whatever, it'll run a couple things. Might even run your trolling motor and things like that. That's the idea. So more of a sustained battery than your starter battery for your vehicle. And so the way I think sometimes I do things without, where they have the internal your internal thought process, and you have an exterior thought process. And so I think internally, without being cognizant externally, I was like, well, 10 batteries. That's the usual safe thing. I can count 10, 20. Okay, so I was writing on some boards, I think. A lot of times I'll ingest information with excluding the source because that's just an added group of neurons I could repurpose for something better. And so think of it like this. If you were going to make some lemonade, are you going to save the rinds and the pulp and stuff from that lemon after you squeeze it? No, you just want the juice from the lemon to make the lemonade. You don't save the husk and all that. I mean, you might throw it in your compost bin or your biogas digester or something like that, repurpose it, but you don't save the husk. So when I get information from something, I just want the juice. I want the information. The source material, the container, all that, it kind of usually I don't retain that so well. And there's a purpose, there's a reason for that. And just think of it that way. So the information I got was that for trolling motors, roughly one of those group size 29 batteries would provide about an hour worth of trolling. So, in my math avoiding mental, calculator, 20 batteries equals 20 hours. Okay. So when you pair batteries up in series and parallel, it's like having people. Okay, one person can do a lot, but 20 people can do a lot more as a group, as a team. And that's what these batteries are like. They're pretty much like employees. It's like having 20 employees. And I'd like to illustrate that at some point, maybe with a demonstration. Like, I can have a hand crank generator. I'll be cranking on the generator and it'll put out 20 watts or something. And I can be there all day churning out 20 watts, right? So I could do that, or I can have my battery employee do that, 20 watts all day. I could do that and be like totally preempted from doing anything else, or I could have my battery employee do it. 20 watts. Now, if I have 20 employees doing that, each doing 20 watts, it's quite significant. You see how that works? And because they're all teamed up working together, the load's lighter, so you get even more efficiencies. That'd be like 20 people cranking on some kind of device that could, as a group, they could all work on it. Like that old movie that's quite classic, Conan. There was a big wheel. The original Conan movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. There was a big wheel called the Wheel of Pain, but they hooked up their workers to that Wheel of Pain, and as a group they could grind. It was, I think it was a grain grinder. It was a person powered grain grinder. So they get all these people hooked up on it, and they can, as a group, they can grind the grain. And then their boss or whatever can sit high on the hog. But I guess if you watch that movie, you'll see that Conan, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, was a sole grinder at the end of the day. He was all pumped up. That's how the storyline goes. So the same thing. If you want to sit there on a crank powered AC generator, you're gonna get buff after probably years and years of doing that. 20 watts or so. But practically speaking, I can't sit there and do that all day. I have obligations that tear me away from that. So I have a battery employee. So imagine the Group 9 battery putting out a constant 20 watts. Okay, that's not that bad for it. And then put them linked up, 20 of them linked together. I mean, subconsciously, I'm thinking 24 would have been better, because there you go, one battery for each hour of the day. I mean, that does make sense because there's a lot of things that are based on the 24 system. You know, electrically, you have you have 24 volt, you have double that, you have the 48 volt. Um, half the 24 volt, you got the 12 volt. So that would have been another logical and logistic way to do it. But I went with 20 for whatever reason. And so, oh yeah, the other reason is if you have too many batteries in series and parallel, each battery can be a point of failure. So the more batteries you have, the more failure you're inviting. But the more batteries you have, the lighter the effort each individual battery has to contribute to the pool of effort. So inviting less failure because there's less stress on it. So um, what was I getting at? So yeah, the trolling motor analogy. So if you think that on average one battery can power a trolling motor for 1 hour, 20 batteries could probably power a trolling motor for 20 hours. Now you have the factor where they're all working in a group, they're more efficient, you probably have more than 20 hours to do it. But there's only 24 hours in a day, roughly. And then as the year progresses, you have what are the hours of the day that are sunlit, and then the hours of the day which receive no sunlight. So the idea is to have a battery bank that has capacity to receive all the photon induced electricity coming from that great fusion reactor in the sky called the old soul, or the Mr. Sunlight, or whatever, the sun basically. So you have a window of reception. You got to look at a solar panel like it's a radio tuner, right? You got to tune it in just right, and you'll get the signal. Now, I have entirely ground-based solar panels, ground mount. I live in a state which gets a lot of snow, and if you have the solar panels on the roof and they get impacted with snow, they're no longer functional. But you have them ground mounted, then you can brush the snow off with a snow brush. And so and the other thing too, the higher they are up, the more chances they'll be struck by lightning, more chances the wind will catch them and tear them off your roof and things like that. So I believe in ground mounting, and plus they're grounded. You know how that all works. So the grounding, I think that's more of a alternating current concept. DC, I've seen people ground things to the negative and totally drain their battery. So as far as grounding, I have to comprehend that a little bit better. But from a structural point of view, my solar panels are grounded because they're close to the ground. So 20 batteries, roughly 20 hours a piece for a trolling motor. Now, a trolling motor is usually it's a motor. It's running. It's going to take some amperages. So, what's if you don't have a trolling motor running? What's if you have a little laptop and little LED light, maybe a fan and a couple other doohickeys? You're good. As long as your solar panels can receive enough, if you have to overbuild your solar panel, your solar panel array. You have to overbuild it, oversize it. That way, even though if it's cloudy, even if the sunlight isn't penetrating through the rain or the snow or the fog or the smoke or whatever. Yeah, we do. You get forest fires and stuff. Get smoky air. you have such an oversized array, you still get some kind of amps coming in. So it's all about lining things up. See, you got to line things up to where, you know, it's not lined up, it's not lined up, it's not lined up, it's not lined up. Now it's lined up and it's receiving amperages, and then the day progresses, and then you're done. So in that window, you have to get the sunlight. So you overbuild your array. My arrays are not, they don't follow the sun. They patiently sit there, and then the sun, as it, to our point of view, progresses through the sky, it will align for a while on the array in such a way that the array will, I have a couple of arrays actually on my home battery bank. It'll line up in such a way that the multi-PowerPoint trackers will do their thing and take those photon-induced voltages and charge the battery bank. And I have one array in such a way that the more in the beginning of the day it'll line up, and then I have an array in such a way that at the end of the day it'll line up. So between those 2 points, the battery bank stays charged. And so it's kind of like when you're pedaling a bike and there's a hill. If you can get over the hill, you can coast all the way down. It's the same for charging a battery bank. If you can get over the hill during the day and you're at that high peak of your energy retention on your battery bank, if you can get to that point when the sun, from our perspective, goes down, now you can coast off of that charged battery bank all the way through the rest of your power usage until the next day, where the sun will show up again to your solar arrays. You should have arrays, primary and a secondary, primary and a backup. Probably should have multiple arrays. There's a problem with that too. If you have too much amps going into your bank, you can overload your batteries and cause them to cook. So there is a limit to that, but probably 2 arrays is good. If one goes down, you have a backup, and like that. A lot of it too is your solar charge controllers. They'll have an amperage limit, like my primary array, which I use right now. I need to get some secondary arrays, which are actually legit. I did have 2. One went down. That's another story. But your charge controllers, they're going to have an amperage input limit, and so if you have if you need to go below that limit on your best sunny day with your arrays, because Murphy's Law, right? If you try to cheat the system, and you do it so you have extra solar coming in on say a winter day or something, some day where it's not that great and limited, and then you leave it like that, and there's too many solar panels hooked to that charge controller. When the sun does appear stronger in the sky, it'll overload your charge controller and fry it. So you don't do that. You give a lot of breathing room, a lot of wiggle room for that charge controller to function. It may be a few days will be maxed out, but you want it under the max capability just to be safe, and that's why you have 2 arrays. That way you can still get the overbuilt solar arrays. That's with an S, and without being in danger of maxing out your charge controller. So what else? So yeah, you have a home battery bank that's large enough that even on a succession of a couple days, maybe a week or something, ideally you'd have a battery bank that would provide you with base electricity enough to power your refrigeration, your freezing, freezer for your food, uh, and then your lighting and your computers and your internet and things like that. And that's where I'm at now. I have a small refrigerator and a small chest freezer that turn on intermittently. Sorry, this is some duct tape. I was doing something outside. Put that back where I put it. So those turn on intermittently. I know they're gonna eat a lot of amperages on their startup from their motor. But if you have a well-sized battery bank, it and a good inverter, we're talking pure sine wave. Don't mess around with square wave and modified sine wave, uh, or as an expert was saying, a modified square wave. Don't mess with those. They're good for resistive loads, like a regular incandescent light, or like a heating element or stuff. I don't even think motors like them very good. But I had a clapper, clap on, clap off, clap on, clap off, the clapper or something like that. I had one, I had on a modified sine wave, and it burned up. It caught the it started it had the burnt plastic and electricity smell to it. I didn't leave it on there for it to completely incinerate itself, but it did not like modified sine wave, and it was a faithful helper. I had that on I'd come in to my house and then clap on it, and all my lights would go on. It was great. But I decided to put it on the. This is what I was still learning about um, DIY electricity, and I put it on the my first solar bank or solar generator. Yeah, I bought it used. It was a Xantrex solar generator. They used four Group 27 batteries, deep cycle, and it had a modified sine wave inverter on it. It's like, geez, you're gonna. It was a bad deal because um, I think it had like a 140-watt solar panel, something limit on it, and it was 12 volt, and it kind of got you the concept, but the bank was too small to. And then if you try to run things that had complicated circuitry in it, you risk blowing them up. So it's kind of a a janky deal. So I still got it too, and I don't want to give it to someone and have them blow their things up. What I ended up doing was I did a workaround. I put a pure sine wave inverter. It was I bought it used. It came from a telephone company truck that crashed, and I guess on telephone company trucks and um, were those trucks that have the lift, the guy that's in the little bucket or cupola, and it can go up and like deal stuff with power poles. Those type of trucks, those. I think they're usually white trucks with big boxes on the side. They usually have a generator on them, and then that hoist for the person. And apparently they got pure sine wave inverters on them too. So anyway, one crashed, and then the guy was parting it out, and he was selling the 12-volt pure sine inverter. And I would never be able to afford one of those new back. This was several years ago, and I still got it. So I put that on there, and it was a workaround. It ran fine. I mean, the problem with that setup though is the inverter was 1,800-watt capacity. While it ran, it sucked so much. Um, it sucks so much, I guess, maintenance amps that would drain the batteries by itself. You can't leave it on. At least not with a 4 Group 27 deep cycle battery array. So yeah, I was learning things. So but the problem with lead acid batteries, they're faithful helpers to you, and then the acid eats up the plate. I think speaking one of the I think it's the positive side, the positive plate. Okay, it's either going to be positive or the negative, but the positive plate gets ate up by the acid, and then when it fails, you're donezo. And you can go put that battery in the recycling and buy a new one. And I don't know with all the disruption and stuff, but they would take all those batteries and take them down over the border down to Mexico, and there was a big battery smelter down there, and they would redo the batteries. That was a few years ago. I don't know what they do now, but yeah, lead acid to me it was. I knew how it worked. It was basically my training wheels. Lead acid. It's still a good thing for starting new vehicles and stuff. Where I live, it gets down below freezing, and you try to run a lithium ion battery below freezing or charge it, bad things happen. So the whole lithium ion thing for me, well, I do use it for obviously in my phones and probably my personal like my nose trimmer is lithium ion battery. My toothbrush obviously um, lithium ion. So I'm not against lithium ion technology. It's effective. I got some power tools. In fact, I got this thing right here. It's a Walmart brand. As you can tell, I do a lot of Walmart shopping. At least I did before this whole thing. It's a hyper tough brand, reciprocating 20-volt lithium, and batteries on it right now. Very handy dandy thing, cutting tree limbs and things like that. It's lithium powered. Good service. Now, try to run a lead acid battery on that, or a big old Edison or battery. Forget it. I mean, you could probably wire it up to it, but it's not going to be as handy dandy. Same for phones and stuff. I mean, this is just a case of a phone. This is a OtterBox for. Is it this phone? Yeah. This is what I've done videos on. It's a Samsung S3. It's used, but the camera is probably the best I have, unfortunately. So, but that's the OtterBox for it. So, but yeah, that's a lithium ion battery in there. So, I'm not against lithium ion batteries. In fact, if you're against something, you should totally learn about it and learn why you're against it, and make sure you can do a functions check on your mind. Best practices and understand things. If you don't like something, you got to, or you fear it, or you think it's not that great, you can show true wisdom by studying it and becoming an expert in things you don't like. And more often than not, if you truly understand something, you won't dislike it anymore. You'll understand it, which is different. So I'm not against lithium ion. I use it. And if it was priced properly and I had a stable, warm environment for it, I have an unstable environment. I For heating, I use kerosene, and I use wood, uh, wood and kerosene, and those are unstable um, for constant heat. So other people have used things like heating blankets and things like that to keep their lithium battery bank within safe operating temperatures. Which is, any other thing about lithium ion batteries is each cell needs to be monitored. Ideally, with a battery management system, called a BMS. Um, and to me, that's more points of failure and things like that. That um, you invite Murphy's law, and with lithium ion batteries, when something goes really bad, we've all seen them, all the footage of them smoking and catching fire and stuff. They've got different uh, lithium ion batteries that. Uh, oh, well, let me prove that I'm not against them. I bought a book called, come here. This right here, how to understand and make your own battery packs and DIY. It's by Micah Toll. And before Will Prowse came along, Micah Toll was really big on showing people how to do stuff. And so I've learned a bit about him, but the more I learn about him is, the more I see, at least for my climate, with sub-zero temperatures, lead acid and nickel, iron, and nickel cadmium seem to be pretty safe for me. And the way batteries work is, you have a sufficient size bank to provide your power needs, and if it's stationary power, the size of the batteries and the efficiency of the batteries are no longer crucial factors. And so I can have a huge and efficient, relatively speaking, nickel cadmium or nickel iron battery bank, huge, just mammothly sized, and it won't matter because it's stationary, and I can provide, I can add still water to it where it's required, and just let it be. Make sure the hydrogen doesn't build up like it did on the first nickel iron batteries on submarines. And that's another story. Quite an interesting story. I'd like to talk about before I was born, but it's pretty illustrative of why you don't let that hydrogen build up. What else? What was I saying? So yeah, if you don't understand something, read about it, learn about it. If you don't want to read, if you're not a visual learner with words and stuff, you can watch videos and do your hands-on and stuff like that. But you're gonna have to do more than average. Myself, I read, I listen, I love audio. I'm a visual learner as well, things like that. So you can self-teach yourself different skills. And basically, if you understand something fundamental, you can use that as your island of refuge. And then you can go out in uncharted waters and learn more things. And then you can always return to your island and see how things relate. It's like building your neural network. You have your core, and then you can branch out from there and interconnect different things. So, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so one of the movies I saw and didn't realize it had such deep concepts and things to investigate and stuff. One of the movies I really enjoy was Fight Club. This came out. I was back in the California Conservation Corps. I didn't even see it in theaters. My ex-wife presented the movie to me, and I saw it. I was like, whoa! But in there, they make soap out of lye. We're talking LYE lye. Lye is a common name for sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide. Either one of them is an alkaline-based mixture when added to distilled water and some sort of fat. In the movie, they used liposuction fat from folks that had that done. But in the real world, you'd use animal fat or vegetable fat, shortening or lard, and make your soap from potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide, either one. Sodium hydroxide makes more solid soap, and potassium hydroxide makes more liquid soap. So what else is potassium hydroxide used for? Well, it's used as the main ingredient for the electrolyte of alkaline-based batteries. And we're talking nickel cadmium and nickel iron. So you see how a movie could, you go from, you know, Tyler Durden to Thomas Edison just by the chemical relationships. And so that's how you learn, or at least that's how I learn. There's a lot of things in movies and entertainment that provide you little, like, I don't know, leads, investigation leads, and you check things out. Like, for example, the movie, oh, The Men Who Stare at Goats. There's this one scene where they're out in the desert and they have a solar cooker. It's completely, like it's made out of, it looks like hubcaps and jars and stuff, and and uh, it's to cook their food or warm their drink, or I don't remember right away. But anyway, they give up in frustration. Well, that movie was meant to be a comedian's look at a serious concept. Yeah, and that's the way you have to approach it. So you go look up, for yourself. You're like, what, a solar cooker? Something that uses sunlight and concentrates it onto a focal point, and you can cook food or heat drinks or sanitize water, or be like a water distiller, solar water distiller. Yeah, those exist. Yeah, you can check it out, and you'll have more success if you implement it properly than it did in the movie. Um, so that just goes to show how you can use movie tropes or movie scenes, or even sci-fi and stuff, like science fiction. Like they'll have some kind of science fiction where there'll be a wrist computer or something like that, and now we got those. So just because it's science fiction or it's some kind of entertainment or whatever, don't discount it. Use it as, like, okay, somewhere behind all that there was a writer, and the writer was getting ideas, and where those ideas come from, chances are there's some kind of grounding that you can check out and build upon. So so this has just been a test of the live stream, and I want to see how that goes. I mean, I thought I'd upload a video every day, and what I want to do is mix it up with live streams, because some people want to interact and ask questions, and some people don't. They want to be passive. They just want to listen and learn. And I appreciate both types. And there's other types as well. Some people just want to troll you and make you disrupted and things like that. It's an ecosystem. It's like a pond. You got bacteria running around, and mold and fungus and seaweed, not some type of seaweed, freshwater seaweed, kelp, lily pads, frogs, fish, nematodes, water bears, leeches. We got all kinds of stuff in the pond. Turtles, snap turtles, snakes, water moccasins. It's not all pleasant stuff. So, dragonflies. Anyway, let's see. So I will say I'm gonna keep this live stream up. If it's successful, I'm gonna keep it up there. There's this one guy I watch, and I even gave him like $2 and stuff. I was like, hey, keep your live streams in a recording, so people, not everybody is free as a bird like you. I mean, I didn't put all this in a little message, but the concept is this: not everybody is able to watch you Johnny on the spot, right? It's not going to happen. Not one bit. Everybody's doing some other kind of thing, but you archive your live stream, you make it accessible at a later date. We're talking from this point on, as long as this platform lasts, someone down the line will appreciate it, and you yourself can access it and see your progression or your lack of progression from that point, and make yourself quite useful to yourself and others. And when you upload a video to one of these platforms, it's like cloning yourself, and that that clone of you at that state of mind in your profession is at least as permanent as digital can get, you know, and it will continue to inform and enlighten others long after the original has gone on to other things, whether it's gone on from life to unlife or some other pursuit. I mean, I have all my limbs. I have most of my hearing. That's another story why I'm black in hearing. It's a god awful story in this year. But I got my two eyes and pretty much all my senses are intact. But who's to say at some point I'll lose those and I'm no longer able to present a video? And so I have no interest in being one of these people that will live stream a video and then delete it there right afterwards. I got so aggravated I quit watching that dude. You know, because even though I was learning quite a bit, the fact that you would not save your live stream for future access later, to me, was a height of folly. Because you yourself will not be around forever, or especially one-on-one. Like, to me, this is like one-on-one, where I'm like, blah, 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 and I'm talking to you. But you can be one-on-one with whoever tunes in for possibly millions, not billions, but millions of people. You know, obviously you have to make it pretty big and be well known and whatever, but this is the way to do it, because I can't individually talk to everybody. There's not enough time in a day, not enough time in my lifespan to do that. But if I make a recording where I would go over something where if you and I were one-on-one, then it's a simulation, and it's practically better than the real thing, really, because I'm not as distracted as I could be by someone I was talking to, and they would want to get their voice in the conversation as well, and possibly cause me to go off track too much. Or maybe find a different track that I wouldn't otherwise have. But what do I got here? It's a U.S. Shelby Co. can opener. I guess they used to have those with the old military rations. It was part and parcel to that, so you could get into the cans and open them. And it's very, very convenient. I mean, I use it all the time to open cans. We've opened a lot of cans lately, and then to heat them up, I'll use this Dietz lantern cooker. You know, I was talking about I use kerosene a lot. This is one of the things I would use kerosene for, and it's meant to heat a little water to make your tea and whatever. But I found out it will. This has already been consumed, but it's an empty can of ground beef. But you can put that on the cooker and just let it cook up, not cook up, but heat up. And it turns the fat in this into a liquid, and it becomes It becomes more edible. But for soap making and stuff, that's another source of fat. Fat from your food, you can save that up in a little lard stash, and then you can use it to make your soap. Um, but what else? So I'm aiming for about an hour. I'll see if this live stream makes it that far, and then I'll check it out. Make sure that, especially that painting. That painting can't be fully revealed, obviously. Even though it is a painting, it's artwork. There's quite a few lines you don't want to cross if you want to be functional in a live stream nowadays. So anyway, um, yeah, it's getting a little chilly. I wonder what the temperature is outside. I live in a house that's not well insulated. And so the outside temperature has a direct effect on the inside temperature. And you can ask, well, why don't you insulate it? Well, why don't I take a trip to Mars? It's all about finances and effort and wherewithal. I haven't reached that level yet where I can do that sort of thing. So I wear a cap, I wear some layered clothing, and I have a little kerosene lantern and make it happen that way. Like I said, I can't be running lithium battery banks because of the temperature fluctuations in my living environment. I'm pretty much stuck here. I was one of those love struck people that imagined that once I got married, everything would work out great. And I got left for uh, what I consider people that make vows and then break them, especially wedding vows. I consider those people to be mentally disturbed, and I was walked out on by one of those people that are mentally disturbed. So I don't promise the world, but I do promise a good, reliable relationship when I get in one. And I'm not the one that's not reliable. But long story short, I ended up out with the house and no purpose, kind of a purposeless house. The purpose was to have a single family, and now it's just a single person in here. And whether it's some kind of like mental coping mechanism or whatever, but I kind of let it go to heck. Or maybe it's me just working my what off to being a workaholic is another coping mechanism. So a lot of things here. Another word I have a problem saying. Dilapidated. There we go. A lot of things here are dilapidated, and it's entirely my fault, or it's all to my credit. I'm a success, total success at things going to heck around here. I'm very successful at that. It's all in how you look at it. But ideally, I'm gonna get things squared away around here, and ideally, my channel will grow, and people will want to tune in, and maybe do some commentary and things like that. I guess you type things up. What would happen if I type something? I should test it. Test, 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 test. Oh yeah. Okay, so my little my little channel name comes up in a gold yellow color with test. Okay. Yeah. So maybe some people would want to, at some point. Well, obviously, here's what I think. You got to have a pretty reliable schedule doing live streams. You got to have the equipment that's reliable, and I'll discover with this live stream if it's succeeded. I mean, I'm able to Skype and things, so you would think the streaming would be sufficient. Um, but there's a lot of like things that got to line up to turn the gears of attempting live streams. So you got to have a good schedule to have participants at least. You got to be useful enough, to your viewers, to the reason they want to view. The equipment's got to work. Your health's got to be up to snuff to be able to talk, and maybe some other key things and stuff. But I'm not going to delete this. I'm not going to do that. I don't understand. Okay, here's another word I'm going to have a problem saying. It's two words. It's Theora aphodosilis or something like that. I without looking at it, I can't say it. But that's a channel. That guy is whoa, and he's an expert on things. But if you type in a question that he's not an expert in it, he won't address the question. He'll ignore it. Me, I'll tell you, hey, I don't know, but I'd be interested in looking at it. He'll just ignore it. So he's on the things he's an expert in, probably well, obviously he's an expert in, but he won't stay outside of his expertise. He won't venture outside of his expertise. But he deletes his live streams, and it's like, dude, you're deleting your essence, the time and the effort you put into something. Not only you, but the people that interacted with you, they've have things they've put in. You've deleted them as well and all their inputs. It's the most. Well, let me put it this way. Before our current era, it was hard to get bandwidth. It was hard to get kilobytes. It was hard to get even recording tape. Like, it's not like it is now where you have basically infinite resources to record yourself. Back then it was limited. We're talking like little couple minute home, like 1970s, before my time. But they'd have like a couple minute home video because the recording medium was limited. So you didn't want, and it was expensive. But now it's infinite, practically speaking. And then to erase yourself, it totally disrespects you and all the other technologies that led up to where you are at, where they could only dream of having basically infinite resources to record things and keep it and then be able to share it to the rest of the world. It's the most self-defeating thing you could possibly do with a couple mouse clicks is delete yourself from a live stream. I would understand if you were talking about things that you didn't want to have made record, but for purely informational and technological expertise type standpoint, it should be fine. It should be just good to go. So, all right. Well, we made the hour point, and I'm going to see if this is a bona fide legit stream, and if it is, I'm going to start making this a real deal. I'll probably need to work on my studio, obviously, but you got to start somewhere. Not everybody can ride a bike the first time, So, well, thanks for joining in. Looks like I have one viewer. Maybe it's myself. I don't know how this all works, but thanks for witnessing me, and we'll do this at another point. And anyway, appreciate all of you, whether you like it or not.